January 18, 2021, a night of celebration in the ancient town of Igarra, also known as Etuno, had just ended. The annual masquerade festival was over, but for a group of young men, that night was not yet done. Among them was Ajitwewunmeshe Emmah, known to all as Lacomb. They had gathered together for a quiet meeting. There was no violence, there was no weapons, there was no shouting. It was just a community discussing. But in the hills of Etuno, old hatreds don't sleep. Without warning, armed men stormed into that meeting. Their intention was not to negotiate, was not even to talk or to discuss anything. It was not even to fight at first, really. According to eyewitnesses, they came to intimidate, to scare, to remind everyone who held power. Then someone fired into the crowd. A stray bullet found Lacomb and he fell to the ground. And before that gunshot could even echo into the hills, that young man, Lacomb, he was dead. The killers, their job done, melted back into the darkness. They had come to send a message, and that message was written in Lacomb's blood. The young man who fell that night was Ajitwewunmeshe Emmah. To his friends and family, he was simply Lacomb. He was the son of Igarra, a member of the community. The news reports from that time describe him as a young man, a vagueness that speaks to how quickly his individual story was consumed by the larger tragedy. But to those who knew him, he was not just a headline, he was a person with dreams, with people who had loved him, with a nickname that friends would call out across the streets. His full name, Ajitwewunmeshe, is a name from the Etuno language. It translates to life is turn by turn. It's a name meant to carry a child with wisdom and optimism. But on that night, January evening, Lacomb's rest was permanently and violently disturbed. A stray bullet fired into the crowd found him, and the optimism in his name was shattered forever. The details of how he died would become a source of conflicting discussions, reports, and internet speculations. But for his family, there was only one truth: their son was gone, and no headline could bring him back. In the hours after the killing, news outlets across Nigeria scrambled to report what had happened. Most headlines described the general clash between two masquerades during the annual festival. They reported a third, uninvited masquerade group who had appeared armed with knives, axes, and machetes instead of the ceremonial sticks they were meant to carry, and that a deadly free-for-all had erupted. In this account, Lacomb was simply a casualty of a chaotic festival brawl. Other outlets presented this same scene of a post-festival clash, echoing the story of the violent, uninvited masquerade group that had turned the celebration into a bloodbath. A vigilante member who spoke to the press described his shock that after normalcy had seemingly returned, they had heard in the early hours of yesterday that the boy was shot dead. Yet another version began to circulate, one that linked the violence not just to a festival quarrel, but to the ongoing clashes among rival cult groups in the state. This account suggested that the Masquerade Festival had merely been a cover, a public stage for a more older, more secret war. These reports, though conflicting, all point to a single undeniable fact: Lacomb was killed and no one was ever held fully accountable. The deep-rooted conflicts that led to Lacomb's death only make sense when you understand the ancient and fragile system of power in Etuno. This is a kingdom that does not just have one king, but five. And their power struggle, worsened by a legal document, is where the violence really begins. To understand why a simple meeting turned into a murder scene, you first have to forget everything you know about how a kingdom is supposed to work. In most places, power flows from one central throne. The king is the monarch and the sun and everything else revolves around him. But in Etuno, land of the Uno people, power is meant to be concentrated in the hands of not just one man. It is designed to be shared, balanced, and negotiated. For centuries, Igarra has been governed not only by a single monarch, but by 5 autonomous clan heads, each of whom holds coordinate status and authority by Igarra ancestral traditional customs. Think of them not as a single king, but as a council of 5 kings, each ruling his own domain with equal powers. These 5 traditional heads were the Oshemi of Igarra, the Oshem that's the Oreyin of Igarra, the Oshidu of Igarra, the Otu of Igarra, and the Otaro of Igarra. Every indigene of Igarra owes allegiance to their particular clan head and his subjects. And for any decision to be binding on the entire community, it must be unanimously agreed upon by all five of them. No king could declare war. No one king could even confer a chieftaincy title without the others. It was a system that had worked for centuries, held together by a fragile mutual respect. But that respect had already been broken long before Lacomb was shot, and the breaking point was a piece of paper. A piece of paper. The real problem did not start in the hills of Igarra, but in the office of Chief Samuel Sunday Obaro. He was a prominent Nigerian lawyer, politician and community leader from Igarra Akoko Edo local government area of Edo State. While serving as the Commissioner of Chieftaincy Affairs and Culture, he helped draft a landmark traditional rulers and chief edict of 1979, which gazetted the Otaru as the single absolute and constitutional ruler of all of Etuno. Before this gazette, the 5 kings were coordinate, they were equals. No single clan head had the power to act unilaterally when it comes to matters affecting the whole community. But the edict did something that no Igarra chief had even dared to think of. It designated one of these 5 as the prescribed authority over the entire Igarra and Akoko clans. It basically took 5 equal rulers and tried to turn them, just one of them, into a king over the other 4. It attempted to replace a system of shared power with one of absolute power. And while the kings argued in the palaces and in the courts, the young men of Etuno took their own arguments to the streets and to the festival grounds. The immediate aftermath of Lacomb's death was one of terror and paralysis. According to reports, shops in the Ugo part of Igarra, Etuno, remained shuttered. The Ofamomo market, a hub of local commerce that opens only once every 4 days, was completely deserted. The community was not just in mourning, they were in hiding. The Otaru of Igarra, the paramount ruler, personally reported the incident to the police and the army, lamenting that the festival had brought the whole community back to square one, and there was an attempt at earthly justice. In March 2021, the Edo State High Court remanded 4 suspects. Saiki Enesheru, Adeche Okuo, Shafe Ozavege, and Otino Adanini in connection with the murder of Lacomb. The prosecutor alleged that the 4 had conspired with others armed with a double-barreled gun and live cartridges to attack and unlawfully kill Emmah. Their pleas were not taken. They were simply remanded, and the case, like many others, seemed to have faded into the endless backlog of Nigerian judicial system. The family of Lacomb waited for earthly justice. They did. The police made arrests, the court remanded suspects, but trials stretched for years, and hope is a fragile thing. In the hills of Etuno, they believed in a different kind of justice. They believe that a wrongful death demands a blood debt. The debt, they say, has been paid. According to accounts from an individual community member, the men who killed Lacomb have not prospered. One of them, it is said, died in a terrible motor accident. Another fell violently ill and passed away. They died one by one, as if a curse has been placed on their heads. But this account remains unverifiable. His name was Ajitwewunmeshe Emmah. His friends playfully called him Lacomb. He was the son of Etuno. He was killed not just in a battle or a brawl, but while he was unarmed and unprepared. This is shadows of the past, remembering those who still wait for justice.